And welcome to the Hot Seat of College Football Show. I am Trent, your host. As we're going to talk about today, is the SEC really over with how they have performed in bowl games and in the college football playoff? Let's talk about it. So, before we get into this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button. We are currently at 113 subs. Let's try to get to 120 before, let's say, February. So by the end of this month, let's try to get to 120. We are 7 away. If you want to be one of those 7 people, that would be awesome, and I'd really appreciate it. It helps grow the show. Also, please hit the like button. That's how YouTube promotes the video, and the channel has really been growing lately. So if you could hit the like button, that would be awesome. And also, if you feel free, leave a comment down below. Who do you think is going to maybe take over when the SEC, they're not performing in the national title this year. Who do you think is going to be the next representative of the SEC to maybe win a national title next year, in the next couple of years? Because now, obviously, if Indiana wins, it's 3 years for the Big Ten. But either way, the SEC is not in the national title. So leave a comment down below. Who do you think is going to be the representative of the SEC if they win a national title? So let's talk about first talk about the playoff. So the national title is tonight. If you want to watch my prediction video between Indiana and Miami, I'm going to pin it right here. I would highly recommend you go do it. It's the last prediction video of the year that will be on this channel, I guess, of this season. It's the last one. We have one last reaction before that's kind of it for this season. This will be the end of doing an entire season of college football. So if you've been watching, thank you so much. But since it's the end of the playoff, let's talk about the playoff. So the SEC had 5 contenders in the playoff. That was your champion, Georgia, your runner-up, Bama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. None of them got to the national title, and the only one that got to the semis was Ole Miss, and the only reason why they got to the semis was because a quarterfinal game had 2 SEC teams. And that'll be a big theme on when we're going to talk about the total record in bowl games later. But obviously you had Alabama versus Oklahoma. One of those teams has to lose. You had Georgia, Ole Miss. One of those teams had to lose. But it seems like A&M and a team like A&M, who could have got farther into the playoff, they got bounced in the first round by Miami, who's now going to play for the national title. But yeah, you want to talk about how they've performed in the playoff. Obviously, you have to throw out the Bama, Oklahoma, and the Georgia Ole Miss game, because those games were both really good, and they were both SEC teams. So an SEC team won and lost, and that contributes to the bowl games. But look at Bama when they played Indiana. Look at Ole Miss when they played Miami. Look at A&M when they played Miami, and how the result and how every single time it was kind of a dominating win. Even with Miami when it was closer, Miami dropped 4 interceptions, layup interceptions, and had committed multiple stupid penalties to keep Ole Miss in the game. Ole Miss never should have been in that game in the fourth quarter. They did. It came into that last play, and we'll, talk about no call. Was it PI? Was it not PI? But yeah, obviously you could talk about bowl games and whatever, but the biggest drop off has been, look how these SEC teams are performing in the playoff, specifically against Big Ten teams. Yes, I know Miami's an ACC team, they beat A&M, but look how they're performing against Big Ten teams. And we can bring that to the regular season too, as Texas, Ohio State. Who won that game? Ohio State. Michigan, Oklahoma. Oklahoma did win that game. You look at the other non-conference, South Carolina lost to Clemson. LSU actually did beat Clemson, though, so that was a big one for the SEC. Miami destroys Florida for the second year in a row. A&M did beat Notre Dame, and then Bama lost to Florida State. So it was a little bit back and forth, and before the bowl games, I actually thought that the SEC would make a really big comeback compared to what the bowl game record was last year, because of what I had seen from them in the non-conference. And we did not see that. There's the clip of Diego Pavia on the Bussin' and Boys podcast saying, you only need 7 points to beat Iowa. Well, Vanderbilt played Iowa, and they scored 27 points and lost. Iowa put up 34 on the board. That was with Gronowski, who was passing for, on average, like 70 yards a game. So yeah, the SEC has really taken a toll back, and we're really starting to question, how good was the SEC always? How good were they always? How many seasons in the SEC was it just Saban? You would have three good teams in the SEC, everyone else sucked, and then you would have Saban. Saban would always be number one, and then you would have like an LSU or a Georgia or a Florida pop up every couple of years. Obviously, Florida had their dynasty, and LSU pops up once every decade, every 2 decades. But it really brought into question how much of the SEC was being carried by Nick Saban. Same thing with like the Big Ten. How much of the Big Ten was carried by Ohio State? It was really Ohio State carried the Big Ten for 30 years. Michigan would be good every now and then. But that was a public thing. That was the narrative. The narrative was that Ohio State was carrying the Big Ten, but it was never that Alabama was carrying the SEC. And part of that was on Ohio State's fault, on losing to Florida and losing to LSU in those 2 national titles in 2006 and 2007. That was Urban Meyer led Florida, and that was Les Miles led LSU team. And it was really Ohio State's fault. It was really Ohio State's fault for allowing the SEC to become the dominant powerhouse, because before that, the SEC was really like the Big 12. They weren't really in the 90s and in the 80s like the powerhouse conference. And you can even blame Urban Meyer for when he beat Nick Saban in 2014 to win the national title. That was the moment that Nick Saban really became the greatest of all time. After that, won 3 national titles in, in 5 years, 6 years, 2015, 2017, and 2020. 3 national titles. He went to the he was in the 2015-16, 2017, 2018, 2020, 2021. So then within 7 or 8 years, he was in 6 national titles and won 3 of them. That is incredible. Most of those years, they had either won the SEC or were the runners-up, or there was that one year in 2017 where they lost to Auburn and they didn't make the SEC championship. But then they beat Georgia, who won the SEC that year. That was the overtime win with Tua, where he got put in over Jalen Hurts. But again, within 7 or 8 years, Alabama made it 8 years. Within 7 or 8 years, he made it 6 times, won 3 of them. One team. And they were very lucky that you had 2019 LSU and the 2 Georgia teams. And it felt like it seemed like it didn't matter. If it was always Bama, and if it wasn't Bama, there was some other powerhouse. And why? It was every year there was one powerhouse. It was mostly Saban and Bama, and if it wasn't, it was LSU, or it was Georgia, or it was Florida in the early 2000s. Why? Well, they were paying players. And then you see the second the Big Ten can start playing players, and we saw Nick Saban talk about this literally a couple hours ago, saying that paying players only benefits the Big Ten because players in the South would only leave the South if they were able to get paid. And it's really kind of let us know that most of these Southern schools don't have the money. Schools like Georgia do, because Atlanta is a huge city. Schools like LSU do, but schools like Tennessee and Bama and even Florida or Ole Miss and Missouri, Oklahoma, they don't have the same pockets as Georgia, LSU, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon. You know what I mean? Even Indiana, with who has the biggest alum. I mean, you wonder why they're, even after spending all the money they did in the past 2 transfer portals, they still have a top 10 transfer class. They still brought in Josh Hoover and Nick Marsh. I'll make a video if the Nick Marsh situation with the gambling, if that becomes a big thing, I'll make a video about it. But even without Nick Marsh, there's a reason why the Big Ten is so dominant. They have these huge universities, like schools I know Clemson isn't in the SEC, But schools like Clemson, Miami, Alabama, these are small schools in small states. There's not a big alum, or there's not like you wonder why Texas Tech is being so good in the transfer portal, because they got oil money. Texas, they got oil money. Baylor, why do you think Baylor, I get DJ Lagway's dad went to Baylor. Why do you think Baylor got DJ Lagway over Oregon, over LSU? Why do you think that? Well, it's because Baylor's in Texas. Why do you think SMU has went from a group of 5, they were a decent group of 5 team, to being a contender for the ACC the first 2 years in the conference? Because they're in Texas. There's so much money in Texas. They only care about football in Texas. This is reasons why schools like Alabama where they need more money. Remember in the offseason this year, LSU has pockets in their pockets. And even still, they needed Brian Kelly to give $1 million of his own paycheck to fund for NIL. So, maybe Nick Saban is right. I think it's biased. I think it's a surface level take. But at some level, it's true. Paying players benefits the Big Ten way more than it benefits the SEC. So now, let's talk about next year. Because if we look in the college football, the top 25, and the final, I know this will change. This is before the playoff, but like most of the teams in here will mostly be similar. There's different rankings. But let's look at the top 25. So they have, how many teams in the top 25? They have Vanderbilt, Texas, Vanderbilt, Texas, Bama, Oklahoma, A&M, Ole Miss, and Georgia. 7 teams in the top 25, 5 in the playoff. The SEC will probably have 10 or 11 teams in the preseason top 25. Let me see if I can bring up On3's way too early top 25 for 26. Because they released it the other day. Let me see if I can see it. This is what they had. Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Notre Dame 4, Indiana 5, Oregon 6. Let me do so. Yeah, Georgia, Texas, A&M, Oklahoma. 4 teams in the top 10. LSU, Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee, Florida. 9 teams, and that usually Missouri will sneak in there. I don't think I'm seeing Vanderbilt. I know they're losing Diego Pavia, but they got the Curtis kid, the 5-star from Georgia, flipped. So there will be a ton of teams in the top 25, and it'll affect where teams are in the playoff. But I don't know if that's going to matter, because look at the non-conference games that are going to have to happen next year. Ohio State at Texas. I would probably favor Ohio State. Clemson, South Carolina. I probably would still pick Clemson over South Carolina. LSU will play Clemson again. I would maybe pick LSU. I don't know. We'll see about LSU under Lane Kiffin the first year. Michigan, Oklahoma. This will be at Michigan now. And that will be Bryce Underwood and John Mateers. John Mateers coming back. Bama, Florida State. Bama will, I think, will be worse next year. Florida State, I think, will probably be better. We'll see if they keep Mike Norvell. He has not been fired yet, I don't think. Yeah, they have not fired Mike Norvell yet, and they've landed a couple guys in the portal. Miami does not play Florida, which sucks. But like, the Big Ten will have its fair share of playing the SEC, and you look at their bowl record. They're 4-10. They've had 10 losses, and 2 of them were to other SEC teams, but 2 of the wins were from SEC teams. So if you count those out, it's like they're 2-8. But let's say 4-10. They're 4-10, absolutely abysmal in bowl. They've only had 1 win over the Big Ten, and that was Texas and Michigan. And again, I don't consider Texas like an SEC team. Same way I don't really count like Oregon as a Big Ten team. I guess in year 3, I guess they're more of an SEC team. But look at the 4 wins in bowls. Tulane, not count. Don't count. Bama beat Oklahoma. Don't count. It's against another SEC team. Ole Miss beat Georgia. Doesn't count. It's against another SEC team. So the only win, there's one win in all of the SEC, one win against a non-SEC power conference team. And that was Texas beating Michigan. That's it. Everyone else lost. Ohio State beat Texas at the beginning of the year. Remember, Texas was the number one. Remember when Texas was the number one team in the country? Before this year, the highest ranked team to win, or the lowest preseason ranked team to win the national title was 2019 LSU at 6. Miami was number 10, and Indiana was 20. Crazy. Isn't this crazy what the sport's becoming? But it's over. The SEC is over. We're talking about, it's not even that the Big Ten is better than the SEC. They are. And for the second year in a row, we have proven that they're deeper. Remember, it was, the Big Ten's better because they have better teams, but the SEC is deeper. No, they're not. Big Ten's deeper. You know who's also deeper than the SEC? The Big 12. Let me bring up the Big 12 standings. Texas Tech, number 1. They're better than most of the teams in the SEC. BYU, better than most of the teams in the SEC. Utah, better than most of the teams in the SEC. Houston, beat LSU. Arizona State, Iowa State. So what? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I wouldn't say Kansas State. I would say 7 Big 12 teams are better than half the SEC. Half. If you look at those teams are all better than, let me scroll over to the SEC. They're not better than Georgia. They're not better than Bama. They're not better than Ole Miss. They're not better. And I would say most of them are better than Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, Florida, Auburn, Mississippi State, South Carolina, Arkansas. That is what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, LSU, and Oklahoma, those 5 were supposed to be like some of the best teams in the SEC at the midpoint in the season. Kentucky, Florida. Remember the preseason hype with Florida and Auburn and South Carolina? Get out of here. So the SEC has really lost its strength, its hold on college football, and now you don't get a team like Tennessee or Florida, who they'll play Wisconsin in their bowl game, or LSU will play Wisconsin in their bowl game. They'll beat them, say, we're bigger than the Big Ten, and then our champion is better than the top end of the Big Ten. No, the champions at the top in the Big Ten are better. The mid teams in the Big Ten are better than the SEC teams. The mid teams in the ACC and the Big 12 are better than the SEC. So, that's it. The SEC has lost all its meaning. Paul Feinbaum is going to leave the country, and that is all I have for you guys today in this video. If you enjoyed this video, if you're a Big Ten fan like me, leave a comment down below that the SEC is over. Remember to hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 120 before February. Turn on the notification bell so you get a notification every single time I release a new video. Hit the like button. It's how YouTube will promote the video. That's the biggest thing. It's just hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't cost anything. So that would be very much appreciated. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys all tomorrow for my reaction to the national title between Indiana and Miami. And as always, I'll see you guys all tomorrow, and thank you.